My name is Ashley. I'm with Group 4, and we chose to look at how ethics influences the use of confidential information. So, of course, the area of confidential information impacts all of us in all parts of our lives. I mean, I can't think of how many times I've had to sign some kind of disclosure about my information being protected, or I've been alerted, for example, that my secured information from my student record was accidentally released or hacked. And the reason that I get those types of notifications, or you may be familiar with receiving them as well, is that it is confidential information and there are regulations that protect it. So, other examples would include our college records, the payment information that we use online, and even things like medical and dental records. So what our group decided to do, since the area of confidential information is so large and so far-reaching, is we decided to narrow our focus and look specifically at how ethics influences medicine, and specifically in how medicine has to deal with confidential information. So in our research, we found that there is this thing called HIPAA, which is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. And what this does is it requires that companies that deal with protected health information have to secure all protected records and make sure that patient information is not released to anyone besides the patient. And this would also include non-essential personnel. So from what I understand, only the people that are working on that specific patient have the ability to look at that information or see it. Otherwise, you're not to look at it even if you work in that hospital or in that office. And so I hope that you enjoy our presentation. We've got a really fun case that we describe, and yeah, I'll enroll.
Hello, my name is Evangelina, and I will be presenting the case where the nurse revealed the STD of the patient to his girlfriend, and he actually ended up suing. He was seen at the Guthrie Clinic in Albany, New York, and his sister saw him there and went and looked at his chart notes and what he was there for, and then sent a text message to his girlfriend. And 6 text messages, as a matter of fact, to his girlfriend. And those text messages were then turned around and used in the lawsuit against the clinic after the nurse was discharged from employment. So part of the text messages that were sent were obviously protected healthcare information for the patient, because the nurse had a duty to protect the patient's identity, what they were seen for, what they were treated for, and disclosed all that information. And let's see, like I said, they did terminate the nurse, but after the nurse was terminated, as far as employment goes, then the patient turned around and continued to sue the clinic, stating that the clinic had an ethical duty to protect his information further. He tried it in different courts. It wasn't just one court that he tried it in. He tried it in several different ones, and all the judges, except for one, found in favor of the clinic, stating that they couldn't help what the nurse did personally because it was different, because she knew the patient, versus what the one judge ruled, and I do believe it was Judge Rivera, who stated that the clinic had a duty to go above and beyond to protect the patient's healthcare information, the patient's information period, because there are so many ways that protected healthcare information gets exposed, and it's the law that it's supposed to be protected.
Okay, so my name is Alexei, and I want to talk a little bit about this case and whom this situation affected. Well, this situation affected the hospital, the employee, and the patient, and also the patient's girlfriend. But most of these people were negatively affected. like the hospital got a bad reputation because of this situation. Now it's on their record, and it's not good for their business. Also, the employee lost her job, even though the court, according to court, she didn't do anything illegal, but she still lost her job. And the patient whose information was released got an emotional distress because of this. And the only person who benefited is this patient's girlfriend, because she was protected because of this information. What could have been done differently? Well, obviously this employee she shouldn't have released this information, but looking at it from her personal view, I think she did the right thing. But anyways, what can we take from this situation? I think it's best to not act alone, and maybe seek advice, seek more information, communicate, ask like what you can say and what you can't say, and just, you know, communicate and find out a better way how to resolve this problem. Okay, my name is Alexei, and what my thoughts about this situation is that I think what this lady did was right, looking at the case from her point of view and from the person who she was protecting. So I think that was ethical, but when you look at it from the hospital's point of view, from the employer's point of view, that wasn't ethical, obviously. So, but I'm on the side of the employee.
Awesome. So I think for me, I'm really sympathetic to the intentions of the nurse, and I can really understand where she's coming from. And I still think what she did was unethical. I think she didn't follow the rules. She had some training. She knew that she wasn't supposed to release confidential information. And, you know, honestly, she was just in a bad position. I mean, she just ended up being in a crappy situation where she knew someone really close to her was possibly going to get hurt, and then she wanted to try to help out and didn't really have a way that she felt like she could do that. And so I'm sympathetic to her, but I don't believe that she did the right thing on the side of the employer.
You know what, I agree at 66% of what you just said. Just 66%. All right, let me explain why real quick in 30 seconds. Yes, I am likewise sympathetic to the employee, though we all know that, you know, it wasn't ethical. You know, private information, the release of private information is not the most viable thing to do. But it could have also been a win-win situation. I believe that if she would have approached the system itself, we all know that there is a system involved. They got to be educated, there's indoctrination, they should know this process, that if she was able to approach the higher ups, supervisory level, HR, I don't know, I don't work in the medical field, but at least allow the system to work and be able to transpose the situation and compose it to where everybody wins.
Yeah,
me.
absolutely.
I'll agree with you to a certain extent. I think I would be more sympathetic to the nurse had she been the treating nurse. And I think that to me is cut and dry. She was not the treating nurse. This is somebody who saw somebody in a clinic, knew them, and then went out of their way to go see why they were here. And to me, that's not ethical. You had no reason to be looking at that patient's chart. And so, looking at the hospital standpoint from it, I also have to agree that what they did was ethical in letting the employee go, because she didn't have a right to that information.
Where does it end if it was deemed ethical, right? It doesn't end because every information would have to be spit out there. There has to be a boundary, a common rule that they got.
Right, because if it was any other patient
Yeah.
that she saw, if it wasn't somebody that she knew, she wouldn't run. I don't
Yeah.
think she would have ran and checked the patient's chart.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to be sympathetic because I can feel for the other side of it,
Yeah.
being in the girlfriend's shoes and being appreciative of that. But from the employer's perspective, you have to rely on your employees that they're going to do the right thing. And so that was absolutely the wrong thing to do.
Yeah. It was just a risky move on her end. I
Yes.
mean, she made a lot of assumptions. She didn't really know what was going on.
No, and she could have approached him and asked him instead of going and doing something unethical. You're not treating the patient. Why would you look at their chart?
Yeah.
Right on.
Because you had mentioned that you're in this field and that you're not even supposed to go digging around
No,
if you're not the
you
treating
have
person.
no. You have no reason to.
Is there a procedure in place if you find out you're assigned a patient that you know and then you would hand them off to someone else? Is there like a process? Do they say, here's the best practice here?
Well, I know that for medical providers, for doctors in place, like there's always that story where, okay,
The surgeon's
the emergency room doctor has the dad come in with the child
Yeah.
and she says, I can't treat this child because I know the child, and it's because she's the mom.
Yeah, yeah.
When you do know somebody, I mean, even the police force has it. If you're related to the case personally, they remove you from it because then it's no longer, you're no longer being empathetic. You're too far close to the case, so you have to be removed from the situation. Because then, what decisions are you making from an ethical standpoint versus an emotional
Absolutely.
standpoint?
And so is that also in place for nurses as well? So it's for everybody?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As you probably have seen from our presentation, going through this plethora of information from the beginning to the end of what's ethical, what's unethical, you probably have concorded into your mind, hey, you know what, at what point are they leaning to? And after having a brief discussion, which you've also seen from our video montage, that we are kind of torn up. Is this a situation to where it is ethical or unethical from the employer's point of view, which is the medical establishment, from the employee, which is the nurse, from the friend or the relative, being the patient, or just being the friend, which was the patient? Now, if you're totally confused, let me unconfuse you with the situation. Okay? Ethics, whether it's unethical or not, has to be a win-win situation for everybody. Now, we've seen that if this had to go to court, more than likely it's going to fall under the favor of the employer. Why? Because of certain rules, certain guidelines that they have to follow. The rule doesn't care about any personal issues. All they care about what is right in accordance with what the law says. The Privacy Act, or under corporate laws, RUFA Act, ADA, etc., etc., etc. And in this case, it would be the HIPAA ruling. And they will totally go with the medical establishment. But before we even go there, considering that there are personal issues involved in this matter, I think this needs to be explored a little bit deeper. How, if you were in the position of the employee, how would you feel if you were in her position? Well, maybe she should seek some guidance, some help, some counseling. Involve the hospital, involve the department, involve your relatives, involve your friends. And how do we do that? First, by consulting with the medical establishment. Since they're the ones that has the rules, let's find some counseling towards that route. And I assure you, if they care about their patients, they would find a way in how their employee would be able to address this issue by being able to communicate in a manner that is well meaningful, and not only that, that other individuals would be totally involved, be able to interact. So basically, this is what our group had kind of gotten together with. A win-win situation for the establishment, for the employee, for her friends, and for the patient. Now, whatever transpires after that, you know, that would be a different matter. That would be a different case study. But for now, if we're all together in this manner, and take a look at this picture. Anchorman, they all got together because they're winning. They all agreed upon one basic instinct. And we didn't purposely do this, but look at our wall here in our office. It says, no one wins until we all win. And that's what we're going by. You guys know where we stand.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that she could have done something completely different? So instead of divulging it to the sister-in-law, do you think she could have just directly approached him and said, hey, Sammy, how's it going today?
How about what
right?
we
Like,
talked about earlier?
Why couldn't she have directly? Because here's the thing: once you've made contact with that person, if you already know them, why? Because it's a little bit suspicious. Like I'm going along with your mastermind plan here, okay? Because then you can actually say, oh, I saw Jeff today. We had such a good conversation. You know, he stopped in or whatever, right?
This. Why can't she involve the employer? Why don't she go up
Yeah, that was
to the HR,
Well,
go
I was
up to
gonna
her
ask.
supervisor and ask?
Are there some exceptions, like where you can release the information?
No.
No, you guys.
No, it's
No.
nothing in here.
It's very cut and dry.
You sure?
Protected
Because
healthcare information.
we would hear it
is
if it
protected
was an alarm.
healthcare information. It extends to the demographics, where your address, your sex,
Okay.
obviously, and your date of birth. And then it also extends to your insurance, what insurance you have. They're not allowed to disclose that. They're
Yes,
not
no,
allowed
no.
to disclose treatment dates, what happened on those treatment dates, and what the diagnosis was for those
No
treatment dates.
exceptions.
No exceptions. The only way you get around it is if
That you are a part of, you go through an indoctrination of rules and regulations.
Yep.
And she should have known, and because she wouldn't be in that job if she did not pass or she did not qualify to know all the rules.
Right.
Not at least get a damn pamphlet, that thing, and read it.
Yeah.
Right? And you're still liable, no, not liable. You're accountable and you're responsible to know everything that's in your job field.
and when you're
So-
in that job field, when they explain what you're able to say and what you're not, you have a better way to grasp on what you can say and what you can't say. And because she knew absolutely what she couldn't say and she chose to do it anyways, it's different.
Sure. But I'm saying to you, let's say she had done the thing that you thought she could have done and
You know
gotten
what?
away
You can
with.
cut that.
Do you believe that her employer, her supervisor, let's say you were the supervisor and you had to sit down and reprimand her
Otherwise
because you
you'll lose
somehow
the
found
mail.
out. You would just be like, okay, no problem, you didn't break any rules.
Well, that's the thing.
See, I'm not sure that it would have gone there.